Brendan, your thoughts on Marsch getting judged seemingly for the first time as a Canadian coach in a poor light?
Yeah, I haven't read a lot of those criticisms, to be honest. And as I said, my initial reaction was that tactically he made the substitutions that you kind of felt like should come. And to be honest, I felt like he did them at the right times as well. I don't think introducing Jebison and Tani 10 minutes earlier would have made a difference, to be honest. It kind of did feel like, that 74th minute free kick from Raul Jimenez was a real dagger that they might as well just run stoppage time. It really didn't feel like Canada had the chance to get 2 goals because it seemed like it was going to be really difficult to find the one, even though they enjoyed a bit of possession and even though the referee allowed play on it was there was a bit more rhythm to the second half, and yet Canada didn't find their own rhythm, right? So I think with Osorio, part of it is that particularly in the second half there and before he was the first substitution was he was trying to occupy areas that he does for Toronto FC. And I think that maybe Jonathan David kind of being in the same spot. David and Laren weren't able to play as the two up top as they have previously. Um, David seemed to be behind, and it just seemed to be a very clogged up kind of area in the final third where everyone was a bit out of sorts. And it's unfortunate that they weren't able to get David the service so that he can do what he can do. But when I saw the team sheet and saw Osorio in there as well, I thought that could cause a problem going forward. I don't think Osorio is certainly not the reason, but I just think that they kind of perhaps they didn't have the right group out there in the moment to adjust to the game that they were dealt 48 seconds in. I think that would have been great. And they would have found it very different if they were able to get to halftime scoreless. Honestly, that's very easy to say. But in terms of how that formation was and what they had intended to do, that all went out the window in 48 seconds. Where Mexico pressed the way Canada pressed and were rewarded for it.
Yeah, the lineup is an interesting one. I will agree with you, Brendan, in the sense that it's hard to say like Marsch had a bad showing. Like, he went out and the lineup he put out didn't have any qualms with it. If anything, I was actually kind of expecting something like that earlier in the day. I was kind of playing around, looking at the wingers, and I kind of wondered, like, Canada, might we see? I thought it was going to be maybe Chouanier in the role we saw Osorio play, just to bring a little more energy in the midfield, maybe free up Kone. I wasn't surprised to see Osorio. But what I will say, look, it's hard to pin on Marsch the fact that his team, I was talking with Ben before the show, like the first goal to me is just like bonkers. Like it's actually one where maybe having played a bit of defender this season in my own men's league, I'm not going to turn this into, AGR's VMSL adventures, but like that one infuriates me just because it's 40 seconds of ping pong of chaos. You pick up the ball. I get Jesse Marsch wants his team to play intense. But it's just the fact that it was Alistair Johnson, one of the guys who's now one of the most experienced on the team. He's playing the Champions League. I just find it wild. He picks up the ball deep in his own half and just immediately looks up and chucks it to no one. Like that for me just felt really naive. And then the team was unorganized. Mexico, yes, they got lucky, but they attacked an unorganized element. From that point on, I think for Marsch, it's hard to pin that on him, but the reality is Mexico got the game plan spot on. Like Javier Aguirre, it was perfect. It was a tactical masterclass. From Jesse Marsch's perspective, when you're faced up against something like that, you have to be aggressive because Mexico clearly targeted their plan A. And you saw it, like Mexico, anytime there was a hint of Laren or David or Ahmed or any of the front four getting anywhere near their back four, what'd you do? Send it long, even if you lost the ball. They were okay with that. They didn't want to get pressed like the U.S. did in September. Otherwise, like they were just so organized, 4-4-2. They're like, all right, we know you guys like the counterattack. Break us while we're set. Canada didn't. Mexico's gamble paid off. And I do feel like for Marsch, at halftime, you could have seen some of the signs of, okay, maybe it's not fair to some of your guys. And I get it's never easy to make a halftime sub. But it's also a bit of like, you need a jolt. You need something. Even the attack isn't working. You stick with Kyle Laren and Jonathan David for 80 minutes. It felt like at minute 30, minute 40, it wasn't going to be one of those days for those guys. So it's hard to say like Jesse Marsch got out coached because it's unfair on him, but I think Mexico got everything so perfect that you do look at Marsch and wonder if he could have been a bit more aggressive. And I think that's maybe where some of the sentiment came online.